Hello everyone, my name is Jason and I am an ISFP. You are watching my ISFP journey. Thank you for watching. Do please subscribe if you have not already subscribed, and to all of you who have, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the differences between specifically an ISFP and INFP, but really what I'm looking at here is the differences between the way introverted intuition and extroverted intuition will show up in many people. So I had a comment on a video, and the comment went something like this. It said, the person speaking said, I'm an INFP, my mom is an ISFP. And whenever I try to discuss with my mom a lot of topics, she doesn't really care to listen. But especially when we get on theoretical topics like religion or philosophy, things like that. And of course, I'm paraphrasing this comment. Then those topics are really hard to talk to my ISFP mom about. And then the commenter said, have you seen this before? Does this make sense? Is this common between, let's say, in this case, an ISFP and an INFP? And my answer is yes. It makes perfect sense. I would think that it is highly common, and I want to explain why. Okay, so let's first start out just by talking about people with high intuition versus people with high sensing, okay? The higher intuition is in your function stack, the more I think you're going to be interested and or comfortable dealing with issues in the abstract, in the theoretical. Those could be issues of religion. Those could be issues of philosophy. They could be science issues. They're going to be anything that requires you to sort of think about things that are not physically, tangibly right in front of you. The higher sensing is in your stack, typically speaking, the less interested you're going to be in those things. Now, everybody's interested in those things to an extent. Everybody thinks about abstract concepts. Everybody thinks about philosophy or religion or theology or the metaphysical world, okay? Everybody thinks about that. You don't have to have intuition as one of your top two functions to think about metaphysics. Everybody thinks about metaphysics. But the higher intuition is in your function stack, the more likely you are to focus more mental energy toward those concepts. And the lower intuition, either extroverted or introverted, is in your function stack, the less likely you are to devote more significant portions of time to focusing on those thought processes. Everybody does everything, and there are always going to be exceptions to those rules, but those are the general truths, okay? Now, so right off the bat, if you take an INFP and an ISFP, the INFP has their intuition function just one notch higher than the ISFP. So they are more apt right off the bat to be slightly more interested in metaphysical topics. However, I as an ISFP have great interest in metaphysical topics and at times have delved very deeply into many of them, but it is not necessarily the burning thought process of my mind all of the time. With an ENFP, let me change that. With a person that has an intuition function as their top function, it is going to most likely weigh much more heavily on them, on their mind and on them. And as a second function, still probably very heavily. And it can even as a third function, just depending, okay? So right off the bat, the INFP might be slightly more apt to be focusing on metaphysical concepts and thought processes more so than the ISFP because their intuition function is just a little bit higher. Now, the other major difference that you have with the INFP versus the ISFP is that intuition function is an extroverted intuition. Whereas for the ISFP, the intuition function that they have in that top stack is an introverted intuition. Now, what's the difference? Why does that matter? Well, it's all the difference in the world. Introverted intuition, though it is focusing perhaps and often on the metaphysical. It is trying to drill down on one idea, one metaphysical concept, one belief. And intuition doesn't only deal with the metaphysical, but that's a huge realm of where intuition hangs out. So introverted intuition is not looking to always take in a multitude of new metaphysical ideas, be they ideas about science or ideas about philosophy or religion, theology, whatever. Introverted intuition will, of course, take in the information it needs to take in, largely through the process of extroverted sensing. So the user of introverted intuition is going to be gathering data from the physical world and then trying to put that data together and drill it down to come up with one logical, cogent, metaphysical concept that will help to explain everything that it experiences in the physical world. Extroverted intuition is always wanting to take in new ideas from the abstract world. It's always wanting to take in new scientific principles and concepts and theories. It's always wanting to take in new philosophical ideas. It's always wanting to take in new religious ideas or beliefs. It's always wanting to gather as much out of the metaphysical world as it can. So for an ISFP and an INFP, say, to discuss these concepts, the INFP will largely be looking to say, okay, I've got my belief. I've drilled down or narrowed down to one concept and belief structure. And that belief comes out of the metaphysical world, but I use it and I drill down on that one belief system to help me make sense not only of the metaphysical world, but of all of the physical as well. But the user of extroverted intuition is saying, I want more ideas. I don't want to park on one metaphysical concept, one philosophy or one religious concept or whatever, and then just be done and say, okay, I've got my little belief system and I'm happy. Extroverted intuition is always wanting to gather in new ideas. So when the INFP, who is always interested in new ideas, new metaphysical, new philosophical, new scientific, new religious, whatever, comes to the ISFP and is like, hey, have you thought about this idea? What about this idea? Did you hear about this concept? Did you see this discovery? What do you think about this? The ISFP is going, with their NI, is going to be going, whoa, I've already narrowed down on my thought process on all of this metaphysical concept, talk. And I don't want to be bombarded with all of these new scientific principles, philosophical concepts, religious ideas. I don't want to be bathing in the waterfall of the metaphysical. I've figured out what I believe. I've drilled down. I've taken in a lot of sensory from this physical world. And through exploring the abstract concepts of the metaphysical to the degree that I can, I have found the metaphysical explanation that helps me to make the most sense of the physical world. And I'm largely content with that. But the NE user, the extroverted intuition user, is saying, but I'm not content with that. I need new ideas. I need new ideas. I need new ideas. Now, how intense this differentiation can be will vary between the types. So an ENFP is going to really be always wanting to gather in new ideas. That's going to be like one of the primary, if not the primary driving force in that person's life, is to gather in new ideas from the metaphysical. And then the INFP may be slightly driven more by other considerations, but will still have a deep need to gather in metaphysical ideas. For the INTP, they're wanting to gather in ideas in the more scientific side of metaphysics, but they're still wanting to gather in the multitude of new abstract concepts, and the ENTP will do the same. But then when you come over to a person, let's say a person who has very high intuition, but it's introverted intuition, like an INFJ or an INTJ, okay? those people are going to be much more like, yeah, I'm really interested perhaps in the concepts and the ideas that beyond what I can just see in the physical world. But I'm not trying to gather in a million new ones. I'm trying to drill down on just one or just a couple. So even though both of these types, let's say you have someone with introverted intuition as their lead function and someone with extroverted intuition as their lead function, you might go, well, they're both intuitives, right? Well, first of all, we're all intuitives. But you might say, well, they're both lead intuitive, so they should both be interested in these metaphysical concepts. Yeah, but the one with extroverted intuition as their lead function wants to gather in a million of these metaphysical concepts and consider them all. And the one with introverted intuition as their lead function is wanting to drill down on a metaphysical concept and say, okay, this is my structure. This is what I believe. This is my metaphysical box in which I can rest comfortably knowing that I have figured out the metaphysical. All right? Now you make it even more complicated when you take someone who has, let's say, a lead or a high extroverted intuition, like an ENFP, an INFP, an ENTP, or an INTP that has that extroverted intuition way up high. And then they come to someone who has introverted intuition and low, like an ISFP or an ESFP or an ESTP or an ISTP. And those people are over here going, no. First of all, I might be interested in the metaphysical, but I don't want to spend too much time there. And I just want to drill down on one idea. So you have this ENFP, let's say, who's going, I need millions of ideas from the metaphysical world. And I'm going to come over here and have a conversation with you, ISTP, right? Who's like, dude, I'm happy with one concept from the metaphysical world. And I also don't want to spend all my time thinking about the metaphysical world. There's going to be a disconnect there. So it makes perfect sense that an INFP would be like, oh, here's a great philosophical idea, and here's an interesting religious concept, and did you hear about this scientific discovery? And they're going to come to an ISFP who has an introverted intuition, and it's a little bit lower, and that ISFP is going to be like, dude, I'm good. I don't want to know about every possible scientific theory that could be out there, okay? I'm not, string theory. Wow, that's wild. I'll watch one documentary on string theory and then I'll go, that's a fantastic concept. I don't completely understand it and I don't see how it impacts my life. So, okay, that was a neat documentary. I'm done. I don't need to think about it anymore. Or when you start talking about religion, or philosophy, an ENFP might be like, oh, I've considered all of these different ideas. Or an INFP might be like, I've considered all of these different ideas and I can see value in this one and I can see value in this one, I can see value in this one. And the ISFP or the ISTP or the ESTP or ESFP, if they've thought about the metaphysical world to any degree, will probably already be like, yeah, I've got my belief system. I'm good. I don't need to be bombarded. Now, there is an opportunity for growth through both concepts. The person with introverted intuition, dominating their intuitive thought, has the ability and there could be value and wisdom in growing and saying, no, I need to branch out and consider more ideas. Because there might be some good ideas out there that I'm missing or shutting out because I'm like, no, I've got my one little idea, leave me alone. At the same time, the person with high extroverted intuition could learn from the idea of saying, okay, I'm like just, on drugs with my idea, but I don't actually ever narrow down and believe anything. Like, do you ever take ownership of an idea and say, it's not just that I'm like imbibing every idea that I can, but I've actually latched onto some ideas that I really believe in. I think INFPs do that very well, but I'm just saying that when you have an extroverted intuition as a high function, you need to consider doing that. And then when it comes to the intuitive versus sensing thing, if you're a high intuitive, hey, there is value in the physical world. There is some real good that can come from like stepping out of the metaphysical world for a while and just enjoying the physical world, making things function in the physical world. And if you're a high sensing person and low intuition person, then just consider the idea that there are some good ideas out there. And so if you're so focused on the physical world that it's all you ever think about and you never branch out mentally into the metaphysical, so you're just like, no, all I care about is what I can see, hear, taste, smell, pass through my lower intestine. There's great wisdom and value in considering philosophy and metaphysical concepts. So yes, an ISFP wanting to shut out the bombardment of an INFP's ideas makes perfect sense. But that's where I would say to you, if you're an INFP and you're trying, or an ENFP, if you have high extroverted intuition in general, and you're trying to speak to someone who has introverted intuition in their top function stack, don't overwhelm them with your multitude of metaphysical ideas. Just come to them and say, I read an interesting article today, and that article said, and give them a detail, or maybe two from the metaphysical world, because they need to see whether or not those ideas can be grafted into that introverted intuition idea system that they've already drilled down on and settled on. If you come to them talking about a multitude of metaphysical ideas, they're probably going to be like, you're a flake, you're crazy, you don't know what you believe, or you believe everything you read, or you believe every idea that ever crosses your path, leave me alone. And if you're a high introverted intuition, or if introverted intuition is the intuitive function that you have in your main function stack, then listen to some of the extroverted intuitives, because they are actually out there testing ideas and finding out that, hey, there are some good ideas out there and you could learn from them. Anyway, I hope that this makes sense. Please leave me some comments to let me know if you connect with this video, if this video makes sense to you. I'm really trying to take some extroverted intuition ideas from some different areas and drill them down into this video. I'm doing what NI does by making a video that tries to drill down on an idea of how intuition functions. So leave me some comments and let me know if you understand and if you agree, if you have experienced this in your own life, whether you're an extroverted intuitive, an introverted intuitive, have high intuition, low intuition. Let me know if you connect with this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please give this a like if you did find it useful, and please subscribe if you have not already. I appreciate you very much, and have an awesome day. Bye now.